Normally, on this channel, I review Fire Emblem fan games. But lately, I've been obsessing over a ROM hack from a completely different fan base. That being The Pit. This brand new Pokémon roguelike casts itself as the Pit of 100 Trials from Paper Mario, but reimagined with a Pokémon flavor. And while past Pokémon roguelikes haven't really appealed to me, I'm a bit of an obsessive Paper Mario fan. So by combining Pokémon with my favorite RPG series, it almost feels like The Pit was designed in a lab to be Danny bait. So naturally, I ran a couple of attempts on stream, and the gameplay loop appealed to me so much that I had my wife figure out how to put it onto our Steam Deck so that I could play it in bed as we prepare to go to sleep every night. The loop goes like this. You start out by walking up to Professor Birch's briefcase and picking 3 Pokémon from the 9 he provides to you. With your squad in tow, you can begin descending, and on each floor of the pit, you will fight between 1 and 4 trainers. Some of these will be single battles and others will be double, but all of them will have a team of 3 Pokémon to match your own party size. The level of your opponent's Pokémon will correspond with the floor you fight them on. So on the first floor, you're going to face off against level 1 Pokémon, but on floor 15, the opponents will all have level 15 Mons. Once you defeat all of the trainers on a given floor, you can collect 3 items at the exit and then descend to the next level, repeating the process all over again. So far so simple, but there's more than just trainers in the depths of the pit, because each floor also has a random chance to contain a wild Pokémon. And these Pokémon aren't random encounters that you can catch in Pokeballs, but instead they're NPCs that you interact with who will help you on your journey. The effects that they have cover a wide range of possibilities. There's a few that have healing effects. For example, Chimecha removes status from your entire party, and Chansey applies a full heal to the party member of your choice. Others offer useful items, such as Gholdengo giving you a nugget, Meowth giving the amulet coin, or Jirachi letting you choose a choice item. But my personal favorite is the chaotic force of Zigzagoon, who offers you a wonder trade for any of your party members. The Pokemon you get in exchange will always match the level of the Pokemon you send to Zigzagoon, but they can vary wildly in usefulness. On one of my attempts, I got a Protean Greninja, but on a different one, I got a plus attack minus special attack unknown with hidden power normal. So it really is a gambler's choice. But if you have a party member who is underperforming, Wonder Trades are an excellent opportunity to try to improve your team. Although that's not the only way you can help your Pokemon power up, because every 5 floors you will get a rest stop. This has a Poké Center where you get provided with a free heal, but also 2 NPCs. One is a move tutor and the other is a shop. The move tutor can remind your Pokemon of moves they forgot for free, or for a fee, give them either egg moves or previous evolution moves. The shopkeeper, on the other hand, sells every TM from all 9 generations of Pokemon, various evolution stones, including things like the link cable to evolve trade evolutions, ability capsules and patches to change your ability, mints to change your nature, and even the newly added rainbow gem that allows you to trans your Pokemon's gender, which is potentially relevant if you want something like Salazzle or Gallade on your team. He also sells the items to change forms for Pokemon that have multiple, like the Rotom catalog to transform into different appliances, or the Looking Glass for the genies that transform between their regular and Therian forms. If your run has any of the generational gimmicks enabled, the shopkeeper will also sell the items you need for those, like Mega Rings and Terra Orbs. Lastly, this shopkeeper is able to sell you vitamins as well as edit your IVs. Notably absent from these storefronts are any healing items. If you want to restore HP, PP, status, or even revive your Pokemon, you're going to have to use whatever you find in the pit. You can't purchase any with your money. But that being said, the services here are still very valuable, and I would argue crucial to a successful run. But if you want to take advantage of them, you need to spend a lot of money. The average TM costs 5,000 Pokédollars, although some of them are cheaper, and a lot of them are actually more expensive than this. Ability changing items also cost 5,000, and the herbs cost 4,000. And if you want a Mega Ring or a specific Mega Stone, it's also going to cost you a lot of money. In fact, significantly more than the high-priced TMs do. And these high prices, along with the unavailability of healing items, lead to what I think is the most engaging part of the pit's gameplay loop, the resource management aspect. You see, as you make your way down the pit, there's a lot of things competing for your attention. The most obvious one is you want to keep your entire team leveling up. You do get an experience share, but your Pokemon get more EXP if you switch into battle against the opposing Pokemon. And the experience share won't give any EXP to Pokemon who are fainted, which means if you have someone get knocked out early into a 5-floor stretch, you're faced with the option of either reviving them and using one of your precious revives, or letting them stay fainted for however many fights are remaining and squandering any potential EXP, causing them to fall somewhat behind the level curve. Once a Pokemon gets too far behind, it can be very difficult to get them back on track, since you have to find safe opportunities for someone underleveled to switch in. And if they keep fainting while trying to gain experience, then it can snowball into a disaster where you end up spending a ton of healing resources you don't need to on a Pokemon who isn't even helping that much. Which ties into the second resource competing for your attention, that being your limited heals. While you can go to the Poké Center every 5 floors, the deeper you get in the pit, the more likely it is your HP gets worn down at a faster rate than Nurse Joy can keep up with. You start out with a few basic healing items that can heal your HP, PP, or status, as well as a couple of revives. But these are not enough to make it 100 floors, so you're going to have to continue to refill your supplies with the items that are dropped every time you floor transition. But even with the best of luck, you're not going to get enough heals that you can willy-nilly spray potions whenever you are below full HP. So you need to be able to figure out when your team is still healthy enough to take on the challenges ahead of them, and when you need to splurge and go into your medicine box. Heal too often, and you'll end up on the lower floors without the supplies that you need. But delay medicine too much, especially status relief, and you won't find yourself getting beyond the early floors. This is also why Pokemon with some form of self-sustain like Life Dew, Draining Kiss, Regenerator, or similar such abilities are really good in the pit, since they can often alleviate the need for a heal by recovering in battle instead of outside of it. That is, if you can find an opportunity to heal during battle. You do have more information than you would in a normal Pokemon battle, as the dev intentionally left dev tools in to let you check movesets, stats, held items, and abilities. So you can use these to scout out safe opportunities for healing, or potentially scout out things that you want to steal. Because another thing you want to keep in mind while battling trainers is how you're making money to pay for vital switches to your moveset, abilities, and nature. One of the easiest ways to make money is to have a Pokemon who can learn Thief, Trick, Switcheroo, or has the Magician ability. By scouting out valuable items on enemy trainers that you can steal and then sell at the pit stops, you can make boatloads of cash. The various type boosting items are each worth 500 Pokédollars, which is the same amount that every trainer gives you at the end of their battles. Therefore, you double your cash if you steal one of these items. But that involves not only having your Pokemon go in without a held item of their own, but also taking a turn off to use a suboptimal move just to get some money for later. And not only that, you have to keep the stealing move on your learn set for as long as you want to keep this grift going. Of course, if you don't have access to a Pokemon who can learn Thief, you can also equip the Amulet Coin to double the money you get from trainers that way. And if you're especially lucky and end up with a member of the Meowth family, Payday is going to be a good way to fund your expensive TMs and herbs. Deciding your Pokemon's moveset is also a very big deal. Because you're working on base PP without any PP ups, having a high PP move that can take you through multiple opponents is going to be key, especially as you get down to the lower floors and enemies start packing more and more Pokemon on their teams. You see, every 25 floors, the pit has a boss. These are prominent figures from the Pokemon franchise, and while their teams are mostly random, they have a fixed ace who will come out last, usually a very powerful signature Pokemon, oftentimes with a Mega Form. Because these are considered more dangerous than ordinary trainers, you get a full heal before fighting them. And after defeating a boss, you get access to a clearing where there is another bunch of 9 Pokemon, one of whom you can add to your team. But as your team increases in size, so do your opponents, and so now it's 4v4. And after floor 50, it'll be 5v5, with full teams of 6 once you get your 6th party member after floor 75. So while rounding out your team with additional members does definitely help in terms of type coverage, I find that ultimately it makes the run a lot harder. If your opponents only have 3 Pokemon, you can often find yourself in situations where you beat a trainer just by clicking super effective 3 times in a row. But that's a strategy that's much harder to pull off against larger teams. But even if you can do this, it is a huge tax on your PP, especially if you're using these stronger lower PP moves. And with 6 squad mates of your own, it also becomes harder to keep everyone leveled up to the appropriate pace. And that's even before factoring in that the higher level opponent's Pokemon are going to be more threatening simply due to having a better moveset, because enemy Pokemon, aside from those owned by pit bosses, are going to be using their level up moveset. Now, if you're anything like me, this sounds like a tough but fair challenge to keep you engaged throughout the entire game. But if you need a little bit more convincing, the pit has a number of adjustable options that can allow you to tweak the experience to be as close to your ideal roguelike as possible. You have a customizable avatar who can be a number of different Pokemon characters or any of the Pokemon currently created. And this model will be followed around by your lead Pokemon a la Heart Gold Soul Silver. And you can adjust the music that plays during battles. But it's not just aesthetics that you can customize for your pit run. There's a number of gameplay tweaks you can make as well. You can increase or decrease the amount of experience and money that you gain, change how many items drop every floor, lock into only single or only double battles, change how often you get access to the rest stop, enable or disable legendaries from being in your party, enable or disable enemies from being able to use the generational gimmicks, and you can even choose which generational gimmicks you yourself have access to. Megas, G-Max, Z-moves, and Terrestrialization are all in the game, and you can play with all 4 of them, or any combination you want, including none if you're old school and just don't want gimmicks. And if you're extra old school, there are 2 versions of the pit that don't include all 9 generations. One that cuts off at Gen 5 before the Fairy type was introduced, and one that cuts off on Gen 3, true to the roots of Emerald that this game is built off of. Hilariously, the pit also has the option for inverse battles, which means that the type chart is reversed, so normal is super effective against fighting, etc. Additionally, if you are truly insane, you can embrace the RNG that comes with roguelikes and randomize the game itself, adjusting things like Pokemon learn sets, abilities, and even typings. And this last option is not as brutal as you would expect from a roguelike due to the quality of life features implemented in this hack. I already mentioned the intentionally included debug menu, which can be used to scout for information, but it goes beyond that. All Pokemon will have their typing displayed right next to them for a quick refresher, which is especially helpful if, like me, you haven't kept up with every single Pokemon from modern generations. Similarly, when purchasing items like TMs and Mints, you are told what they do before making your purchase. Which is great because I can never remember what each nature signifies. I know Adamant and Modest are the good ones, but I just can't remember which is which. Battle animations can be turned on or off, which seems like a standard feature, but somebody didn't tell the devs of Gem 9 that. But they can also be sped up, making them go at 1 times, 2 times, 3 times, or even 4 times speed. That way, if you want battles to be a little bit faster and snappier, but still want to see the fancy fireballs and water squirts, you can have the best of both worlds. In a similar vein, text can be sped up or even forced to be instant. The bag is also divided into a large number of pockets, separating HP and PP, status restoration, TMs, rare candies, revives, held items, berries, and any other categorization from each other for easier sorting. It does definitely slow down menuing a bit, but honestly, I think this is still significantly better than clumping everything together in so many limited pockets. It's easy to check your resources at glance, so you can see just how many revives you have, how many heals you have, etc. However, as much as I love the pit, I'm not going to pretend that it is the perfect experience. There are a couple of minor quibbles I have, and your mileage may vary on how much they impact the experience for you. My first frustration is with the RNG. Now, obviously, roguelikes are going to inherently have some amount of randomness in them, and Pokémon itself is an inherently random game system. Just ask any competitive player who had to nail a Focus Blast in order to not lose their match. But in addition to expected randomness with the quality of your starters and the number of heals you get, there are some moments where it can feel like your run is just doomed no matter how well you play. If you lose a run to pure luck in the first 10 floors, that feels pretty acceptable, because you might have ended up with a bad set of starters, or just matched up against trainers you didn't have the preparation for yet. But during the later floors, many opponents seem to take after the Battle Factory, with cheeky Focus Band or Quick Claw strategies. For example, I lost a very promising run to a Prinplup who procced Focus Band twice in a row, sending me all the way back from floor 89 to the title screen. And the number of times I've lost healing resources to multiple Quick Claws in a row is beyond comedy. In fact, the instances of this weirdly bullshit RNG were so frequent that people in my stream chat hypothesized the Battle Factory AI was actually implemented into the game. Although I can't find any mention of it, so personally, I think I just got unlucky. But I take issue with adding this degree of luck into a game that is inherently already going to have its share of RNG screws. If a run doesn't give you any revival herbs, that's unfortunate but kind of unavoidable territory for a roguelike. But strategies like Bright Powder and Focus Band are just a demoralizing way to end a journey that can be upwards of 3 to 4 hours. But beyond that, there are also some bugs in the game's battle system that can impact your ability to progress throughout the pit. These seem to mostly revolve around the execution of the eject button and red card items, which can cause a variety of weird effects. One time I had an opponent's eject button Gourgeist clone itself, so they had 2 low HP Gourgeists in the back when they should have only had 1. When red card forced my Tyranitar out, it procced Sandstream and started Sandstorm for another 5 turns, although the message for this text was also glitched and just said that Biker Dana wants to battle 4 times while it hit all of the Pokemon on the field. When playing in doubles, my Walrein used its red card on the opponent and forced my own Pokemon to switch out. And I had various other bizarre effects all centering around the red card and eject button. I never ran into a Golisopod, but I assume Emergency Exit is similarly bugged. And I really think this is just an issue with Emerald's code. When I played Obsidian Emerald, another game based in the Emerald engine, I ran into some similar red card bugs, where the item would cause whatever Pokemon it dragged out to immediately faint. As such, it's hard to blame the pit for this issue, but I do think that the buggy nature of these items means they probably shouldn't be used so frequently on enemy trainers, because I felt like I was constantly running into foes holding one of the 2 items that could throw a spanner in the works with some random unpredictable effect. But these are the only 2 issues I have with the pit's gameplay loop, and neither of them are egregious enough to interfere with my absolute addiction to the game. At time of recording, I finished my first 100 floor run today, but rather than putting the game down forever, I immediately reopened Professor Elm's briefcase and picked out 3 new buddies to go on another adventure with. So it's safe to say that the pit's brainworms are still lodged into me as deep as ever. But hey, you can take my addiction as an endorsement of just how good the gameplay loop is. This obviously isn't the only Pokemon roguelike out there, and I'll probably check the other ones out eventually, but for now, the pit has won me over, with its promise of combining Pokemon with Paper Mario, 2 of my favorite RPGs. Although, this isn't the only recently released Pokemon ROM hack that combines it with Mario, now is it? Thank you to my patrons, Eris, Len, Gameboo, Karosa, Fyrant, Your Doctor, Guiji555, Smazruby, Zycrom, Robin D, Alenby, Houndogs, Girl Boss, Lizard Bongwater, Christopher Bueno, Marin McLean, Jaden, Shadow, Faye, Calamity Callie, They Thom, Andu, Reflect, A Clever Username of Lies, Jackson McMahon, Electra Giga, Erica Ford, YLO1, George Grenville the 7th PM, Jamie Collins, Thick Mulder, Arvis, Tailored Muffin, Floahay, Faulty Videos, Lyra, Kyle Madison, Derek Williams, Just Riley, Anna Cabana, Some Trades, The Daily Fugle, Sardonic Muse, Dysike, Ginger, Root Beer Pans, Queen Elizam, Aerith Emblem, Adele, Gabe the Green, Control Daegis, Roman Chromantic, Knickknack Hammersmack, SUP, Caius Cole, Hycyclop, Bree, Punchfighter Champion, Eggman, and especially my Jakins, Toaster But Really, Elizabeth, Shermie's wife, and Bethany. If you would like to support the channel financially, there is a link to my Patreon below, but please only donate if you can comfortably afford to do so. I don't want anyone going broke over Paper Mario, or Pokemon, or Fire Emblem, or me. Like, subscribe, do all the YouTube things. I gotta go get back to my next pit run. Bye!